Okay, so for now, you guys should have completed the attendance form, and you also should have answered the Do Now question posted on the classwork tab for AIM 2.1, titled AIM 2.1 Do Now, and we just went over that. You guys did a good job with that, so on we go. So just before we get into the slides, let's just kind of pay attention to the, how we're supposed to be taking notes. Make sure you guys copy down the AIM, including the number 2.1, and copy down the AIM word for word exactly as it's written. What was life like during the Paleolithic era? And again, just a reminder, this is kind of our lesson objective. This is what we want to make sure we know by the time this class is over. We need to be able to answer this question accurately with some detail in order to achieve the learning objective for today. So that's just something to keep in mind. So everything we come across, think about it through this lens. And here we go. Okay, so I'm going to put the slide up. I'll give you guys a second to take down the notes you need to take down. Pay attention to the subtopic and your details. I'll give you a second. Okay, so the word Paleolithic is a Greek word, and it means old stone. So when we say Paleolithic, we're really talking about the old Stone Age. Just as an aside, we will make reference often to the Latin and Greek languages because a lot of the vocabulary that we use is going to kind of stem from the Latin and Greek languages. So if we know a little bit of Latin and Greek as far as prefixes and suffixes, we can figure out what words mean. Lithic, L-I-T-H, lith, that is almost always in reference to the word stone. So a monolith is a single giant stone, for example. And we will come across more examples of this, and I will touch on this as we go. But pay attention to some Greek and Latin. So Paleolithic is the old Stone Age. Paleolithic people were hunters and gatherers. Now, I didn't define hunters and gatherers because the term hunters and gatherers, I think, pretty much defines itself. And the fact that these Paleolithic people were hunters and gatherers informs their lifestyle. They are nomads. They are people who travel from place to place in order to survive. So some important vocabulary that we have here is Paleolithic, hunters and gatherers, and nomads. And why would being a hunter-gatherer result in living a nomadic lifestyle? We will go over that here. Okay, next slide. So I'll give you a second to take the notes. All right, so why does hunting and gathering lead to the nomadic lifestyle? And the short answer is because people are chasing food around the globe. And that's essentially the Paleolithic life. The Paleolithic life is just people chasing food. Food comes in essentially two forms, hunting and gathering, like we said. So they're hunting animals and they're gathering wild growing plants, berries, nuts, things like that, things that are growing naturally in the wild. So we know that, especially in our region, for example, there's 4 seasons and, not much really grows when there's a bunch of snow on the ground. So hanging around up here in, the Hudson Valley is probably not a great idea come winter because the food supply is going to get really short. So those changes in season are going to cause us as nomadic people to leave the Hudson Valley and head for somewhere where there's a more plentiful food supply, probably south, where there's no snow. And it's also important to understand that different crops grow during different seasons. So, I'm just making this up, but maybe in the Hudson Valley, it's great for corn in April. But then once all the corn is gone, you need to go to the Ohio River Valley, and there you're going to find wheat. And there's also herds of buffalo. And, the buffalo move west, so we kind of have to chase them west. And you can see how this kind of a lifestyle with regard to the food supply kind of dictates the way we live our lives, being that we are nomads, traveling from place to place to pursue food supply. And that's really the biggest part of Paleolithic life. Everything else about people's lives during the Paleolithic era is informed by the fact that they are constantly on the move. So when you try to infer about what life is like, you have to keep that idea in the back of your mind that, okay, so if we were constantly on the move, how would that impact our lives? What does that say about the kind of clothing we have, the kind of shelter that we have, the kind of technology that's available to us, the things we do on a day-to-day basis? how many things we own, etc., etc. So the Paleolithic era, in a nutshell, is food sources controlling people. It is food controlling people. Where food is available controls how people behave, and that's the important part to understand. Okay, so classwork for today. You will find this on our classwork tab, and it says AIM 2.1 Paleolithic Life. Now we have a couple of different things here. Let's start with the graphic organizer. This is going to be the actual sheet that you guys complete for today. So each one of you have a copy of this, and you can see we have Paleolithic life on one side, and we have Neolithic life on the other side. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to use two different documents. We're going to start with the Paleolithic side. For Paleolithic life, we're going to use the section of the textbook that I've provided here in this PDF. You guys all have read privileges for this, and we're going to use pages 8 and 9. It says it on the worksheet, so you don't have to remember that. But if we kind of scroll to page 8, this is where we will start to kind of come across the information that we're looking for here. So you see the heading here, the Paleolithic age. So we're going to focus a lot of our attention on this page and then into kind of the top of page 9 here. This is where we're looking. And essentially what we're trying to do is we want to use this resource to complete the Paleolithic life side of our graphic organizer for today. So we're really interested in a couple of different aspects of life in the Paleolithic era. Number one, what is their shelter like? What are their homes like? So describe them. Any information that you come across in the text that kind of describes shelter for Paleolithic people, we want to put that stuff in our graphic organizer, okay? Next is technology. Tools, weapons, anything used to make work easier is considered technology. Some people may consider fire technology. You can make the argument, but that's a different, argument for a different time. In Paleolithic life, what was food sources like? What did people eat? Don't just say, plants and animals. What kinds of plants? What kinds of animals? What is the text telling us, okay? And then finally, gender roles. During the Paleolithic life, according to the text, which genders were responsible for which responsibilities? Who did what? Okay. I know this is kind of an antiquated way to kind of think about this, but as far as the textbook is concerned, they come from a different time. So we probably need to do some work to update that stuff. But for now, we'll just go with the way they reference this stuff. So you're going to use the text provided, pages 8 and 9, to complete this side of the graphic organizer. And the only other thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the day 1 exit slip on the bottom here. So there's an exit slip that goes with day 1. Third period today is essentially day 1. So I'd like to spend the remainder of third period completing this classwork here. And then the next class period, we will, kind of go over stuff about Neolithic life, and I will give you a resource that you can use in order to complete that side of the graphic organizer also.